Hey everyone, hope you're all staying safe and healthy out there. I know I don't speak for myself when I say that we wish we were back on stage sharing music with you all. But until then, myself and the LA Phil percussion section will be playing a xylophone rag by Bob Becker called the States Medley. And it'll feature 3 songs that were famous in the early 20th century. Back Home Again in Indiana, California Here I Come, and Alabama Bound. It's a very fun and upbeat piece. So hopefully this brings some joy to your life right now during this trying time. So stay safe, sit back, and enjoy.
name is Brian O'Connor. I'm principal percussionist of the LA Winds, and today I'm going to be talking to you about the concert snare drum. Now hopefully you recognize it from the back of the ensemble, but if you don't, that's okay. You're going to learn a lot about it in the next few minutes. We are going to talk about, one, how it makes sound, and two, what is its role and function in the ensemble. And then finally I'm going to play for you a snare drum etude, so you kind of get to hear what the drum is capable of. So how does the snare drum make sound? Well, like most musical instruments, it's a marvel of physics. So as I'm getting ready to play this drum, you'll see my stick is like up in the air and moving down towards the drum. If you remember from physics, I'm creating all this like potential energy as the stick is coming down. And once that stick hits the drum head, all that energy is transferred from the stick to the drum head, and the drum head begins to vibrate up and down, up and down, up and down, very fast. The drum head, by the way, is this skin that is stretched across a drum shell really tightly, so that when you hit it, and actually, let's listen. When you hit it, it vibrates up and down super fast. And that vibration causes sound waves. The sound waves travel up, back towards my ear, back towards the ensemble. They also travel down towards the second head. And depending on how big the drum is, the sound waves inside of the drum vibrate off and bounce off of the drum shell, and it creates a nice resonant, full sound for the drum. This drum's a little thin, so it has a bit thinner, kind of higher pitched sound. But the other thing that's unique to the snare drum is this kind of metallic sound that makes it very percussive. If we listen to this, you hear that kind of like metal type sound. Let's contrast that with this other drum. This drum does not sound like a snare drum. Listen. You can hear that. It kind of has a more resonant sound. This is a tom-tom from a drum set. So what makes it and gives it that metallic sound? Well, it is, if you remember what we talked about, when the drum starts vibrating, it goes up towards my ear and also goes down. What happens is that when those sound waves move down, they actually start to resonate with this bottom head. And the bottom head starts to vibrate. Even though I didn't hit it, because all the sound waves are traveling down, the bottom head starts to vibrate, and then these metal tines that are stretched across that bottom head also vibrate because they are on that bottom head. So that's where we get that snare sound from. If you listen one more time, you can hear that snare sound. Now, what's neat about the vibrating of the bottom head is that it can vibrate by the snare drum being hit, by the top drum being hit, but it can also, because of physics, it can start vibrating just because of other sound waves traveling at it. I happen to have a trombone right here. I'm going to show you. Now the trombone, again, is not going to touch the snare drum, but what you are going to hear is you're going to hear the snares on that bottom head of the snare drum start to vibrate. So what is the solution that we've created to stop that? Because in the ensemble, there's trombones, there's French horns, there's all sorts of instruments that are playing near the snare drum that could cause it to vibrate like that and make sound. Well, nowadays we have these little switches here, so we can loosen the snares just by flipping that off. And now you can hear no snare sound at all. We turn it back on. There's our snare sound again. So that is how the snare drum makes sound. Okay, so what are the functions of the snare drum in the wind ensemble? Well, by my count, we have three major functions for the snare drum. The first is as a metronome. It keeps time for the ensemble. And we typically hear this in marches or anything that kind of like has that military feel to it. Typically it'll sound something like this. The second function that the snare drum has is to kind of carry through transitions in the ensemble. And this typically will sound like a snare drum roll or swell as the music is getting louder, or rolling and getting softer as the music is kind of dying down, okay? Typically we'll hear this between phrases, or kind of at the end of a phrase, or maybe introducing a new phrase. If you can imagine a slow and soft section that is transitioning to a very loud moment, it would be paired with this in the ensemble. And the reverse would be true, right? We're having a very loud song, we just hit that beautiful final chord, and we're coming down to a nice soft ending. We hear the snare drum kind of carry us through that, lead us through that. So that is the other role that the snare drum can serve in the ensemble. The third thing is that the snare drum sometimes can amplify specific rhythms that are being played. We hear this a lot in modern music when there are these really cool little licks that are happening in the ensemble. The snare drum can kind of amplify that. It has a real percussive note to what the instruments are playing. So you may have heard us play some songs with trumpets playing a very percussive da-ga-da-ga-da-da-da-da-da-da. And when you pair that with the snare drum, you can see that it really amps up a rhythm like that. So those are the three major functions of the snare drum in the ensemble. All right, I hope you've enjoyed my explanation of how the snare drum makes sound and also its function within the ensemble. We're going to end today with an etude by Anthony Cerrone from his book, Portraits in Rhythm. I'm choosing etude number 4, showcases the wide range of this instrument. I hope you enjoy.
I have to answer with a yes and a no. I can think of two instances. One instance where I was actually told by a contractor, I didn't hire you because I know that conductor doesn't like to see women in the percussion or brass section. So, I mean, that is tangible evidence that being female didn't work for me in that one instance. And I will say that it was devastating to me because I never really thought of it. I was probably 25 years old at the time, and I'd never really thought of it. I hadn't really run into it up to that point, which is sort of odd, I guess, for my generation. But, so yes, I have that tangible evidence that there were people that thought that way. And I would also say that being female in a male world works in my favor, because a lot of times it's sort of an oddity, and people think, oh, if we get the girl, that will bring attention to our organization in a good light, maybe. So, you know, and I have tangible evidence. As odd as this sounds, people will send me emails out of the blue and say, hey, I watched you all through this concert, you know. How many girls are there that play percussion? You know, so you know it's because you're not, you know, in the big numbers that they're sending you an email, you know, or I've been stopped in the grocery store and someone has said, hey, I saw you at a concert last week and you played this, and I'm thinking, I have to say, you know, there's prejudice against people who are fat, people who are short, people who are, you know, of one color or another. So it works in our favor, it works against us. I think it evens out for me. My experience has been that it has evened out. I work now for Placido Domingo. I've had many moments with him standing on stage singing some of the most beautiful, I mean, painfully beautiful things you've ever heard, that just make me shiver from my toes all the way to the top of my head. But I love it. You know, I sit in a chair and I listen to some of the most beautiful music ever written, performed by colleagues who are at the top of their game, with people on stage who are world class. There are moments in my life when I think, what did I deserve? What did I do to deserve this great moment?